Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the legality of President Trump's executive orders regarding mail-in ballots and birthright citizenship. Also tonight, the state lawyers up to protect Colorado River water rights. And Reading Rainbow is back. We'll visit the PBS show's new host, Michael Threets. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The U.S. Supreme Court this week heard arguments on the legality of President Trump's executive order that reverses the 14th Amendment by ending birthright citizenship. This as the president's latest executive order, which restricts mail-in voting, is already facing its own legal challenges. Joining us now is attorney Stephen Montoya from Montoya, Lucero and Pastor. Stephen, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you, sir.
Let's talk about the birthright citizenship case. Supreme Court hears it this week. Sounds like the Supreme Court justices were a bit skeptical.
They were skeptical, to be sure. It's no surprise that they were skeptical. All the challenges to the birthright, the Trump attempt to unilaterally reverse the nation's history of birthright citizenship as embodied in the 14th Amendment have been unsuccessful. Reagan appointees, Bush appointees, Obama appointees, they've uniformly declared it unconstitutional. It went up to the Supreme Court. I think it's going to lose there.
The arguments, you think it's going to lose. I want to get back to that because I think you were talking earlier, and it might lose, but let's get to it right now. You're thinking it might lose by a lot.
I think it might lose by a lot. I was counting 7 votes for sure against the administration. Roberts, Kagan, Jackson, Sotomayor, Gorsuch, and Barrett. And I think that you might even get a couple of more. You might get Alito. I know that's hard to believe, but he is the child of Italian immigrants. Mm-hmm. And it was back in the old days, it was hard for Italian immigrants to get into the United States, and they were discriminated against. Thomas, birthright citizenship is something very dear to African Americans. Kavanaugh seemed very skeptical of the arguments against birthright citizenship.
Seems okay. Let's talk about the arguments that the administration is bringing here. I know that Trump in capital letters tweeted out, or whatever it is, "It's about the babies of slaves!" ! And that's it. Is that the basis of the argument?
That's the basis of their argument, but that's problematic in and of itself because the amendment, which I have right in front of me, reads, quote, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside." All persons, not all recently emancipated persons, but all persons. And when the 14th Amendment was passed, non-citizens could actually vote in presidential elections in most states. And if you could vote, that's one of the hallmarks of being a citizen. In fact, in the Civil War, 1/4 of the warriors preserving the United States of America were foreign born.
I would imagine an argument would be that if the Supreme Court at the time wanted only slaves and the children, they would have put that in the amendment.
And that's what Justice Barrett said, because the administration was talking about, well, you have to be domiciled in a state in order to be a citizen. And if you're illegal, you can't be domiciled. But the amendment doesn't talk about being domiciled. It talks about where you were born. And in its use solely the land in which you were born, not jus sanguinis, which is the blood of your parents, the citizenship of your parents. Being an American does not depend upon the citizenship of your parents. And that was the law of England that came to the United States and has been the law of the United States since before the beginning of the country.
The president was in the gallery. First of all, how unusual is that? And was he there just basically to intimidate?
That's my view. How unusual was it? It was not only unusual, Ted, it was unique. It was a first. It was very unusual. It was even more unusual when he stormed out during the ACLU's argument advancing birthright citizenship.
Last question on this particular
Yes.
aspect. The president has berated, he actually berated the justices leading up to his appearance there, and they are stupid judges, dumb judges and justices. Does that make a difference? Is that something that the justices hear, and does it affect them?
Well, as an advocate, I think it does. One of the things that I like to tell young lawyers, I've been practicing almost 40 years, is don't do anything to insult the judge. Don't do anything to disrespect the court. Judges are human, but when you uniformly insult them, they become less sympathetic to you, to be sure. And when it's the President of the United States, that makes it 100 times worse.
Real quickly, another executive order from the president regards mail-in voting, creating a list of eligible voters in each state. The Postal Service would be involved in all of this. What do you think of this?
I think it's a mess, and I think it's unconstitutional. First of all, it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote under the present regime. As I indicated, back in the era of the Civil War, non-citizens could vote in some states. For example, the state of Illinois, they elected Lincoln. There's a whole book about it. It's a great book. But nowadays, non-citizens can't vote. It's a felony. Non-citizens do not vote. Literally 4 or 5 citizens voted out of millions and millions and millions of votes in the past 2 presidential elections. So it is not a problem. In fact, one illustrious voter consistently votes by mail, and that would be President Trump himself.
I was going to ask about that. I mean, first of all, does something like this, which seems relatively clear-cut, of course, birthright citizenship seems relatively clear-cut, does something like this wind up in the Supreme Court?
I don't know if it will end up in the Supreme Court. Like his other executive order regarding voting, requiring proof of citizenship before you vote, that got struck down in the lower courts, and the Trump administration did not appeal. This is going to be struck down in the lower courts too. I confidently predict it's not going to take very long. 2 lawsuits are already pending. I think they'll be clearly granted, and I'll tell you why. The Constitution is very clear. States control voting. That's why the state of Illinois said, hey, as long as you're a hardworking immigrant, you can vote in our elections, and they did. States control elections unless Congress passes a law regulating voting. The president does not have the authority to regulate voting in the United States. And this is really a complex statute that would give the executive a lot of power over voting that he just doesn't have.
And real quickly, last question before you go.
Sure.
The president does vote by mail. He habitually votes by mail, and he says the reason is...
Just last month, in the month of February,
Yes.
in the month of March, he
Yes.
voted by mail.
He says the reason is because I'm the president.
Well,
But does that kind of argument, that kind of reasoning, if it does get to a higher court, does that come into play?
Well, I would think it does come into play because, the president is very busy, and I can understand why he votes by mail. I think that's legitimate. But someone who is sick and home-ridden, I also think it's legitimate for them to vote by mail, too.
Stephen Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. We never even got to Pam Bondi, for goodness sake. She was let go today.
She'll do well.
She'll land on her feet. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Ever wonder what today's workforce looks like and how to prepare the next generation? Your local public media station and American Graduate Jobs Explained are here to break it all down on the most popular social media platforms. Real people, real jobs, from trades and healthcare to hospitality, tech, and more. Explore local opportunities for a brighter and more profitable tomorrow.
I'm talking high-paying, interesting jobs just waiting for you.
American Graduate Jobs Explained. Visit jobsexplained.org to learn more.
On Call the Midwife.
You're a good man, Pastor Robinson.
But you haven't come here to tell me what I'm doing well, have you, Mrs. Wallace?
No.
Those cards contain confidential medical information.
I work for the National Health Service.
I'm starting to think we were moved here for a reason. Can't they just
breezing at will.
We are under no obligation to do everything they ask.
Sunday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte, the groundbreaking program that has served as a platform for Arizona's Latino community for more than 2 decades.
Latinos care about issues across the board, just like everyone else.
There's a lot of diversity in thought and opinion. We just need to make sure parents understand the value in having multilingual students.
We like to hear our voices heard. Stream episodes online at azpbs.org, YouTube, or on the PBS app.
Arizona recently hired a high-powered law firm to defend the state's Colorado River water rights. The move comes as ongoing talks between the 7 states that use the river's dwindling water supply have failed to reach a deal over how best to cut that usage. For more on this, we welcome Brandon Loomis. He covers environmental and climate issues for the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, you do some great work covering all of this, and now the latest is hiring an attorney, hiring this firm in particular. Is that signaling? Is it preparation? Is it both?
It's definitely preparation. And in fact, the day after this happened, to the signaling part, the day after they hired them, I listened in on a meeting of the Upper Colorado, the other states that presumably might be the opponent, and they seemed to think that it was signaling, and said, litigation doesn't solve water problems.
Well,
so they heard the message. That's all I can say.
If there was a message, they got it, right?
Yeah.
And again, the lack of agreement on the 7 states, and we've had Tom Bushatsky and other water people here talking about this, and it seems like the core and what they're leaning back on and what they're waiting maybe to use is this 1922 agreement in which the upper states agree to pass a certain amount of water to the lower states, correct?
That's right. You're speaking of the state of Arizona's position, or what it could be. Yeah, it would. If they've been trying for several years, to get a deal with the other 6 states, and it just hasn't worked. And so if it ends up going to court, my understanding is that it would be based on the 1922 compact, which, as you said, split the river between 2 basins, essentially split the river supply in half, so that the upper states of Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico theoretically would get half of the water that at that time people thought was coming down the river. And then Arizona, Nevada, and California would get an equal amount, and Mexico later came with a treaty and got a smaller amount. So the compact is what Arizona would rely on to say. It says that the upper basin states shall not cause the amount to fall that basically passes Lee's Ferry in northern Arizona, that those states shall not cause it to go below the lower basin's half.
And the upper basin states, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the upper basin states are kind of saying, hey, the drought, the dwindling snowpack, the cuts that you want us to take, we're already experiencing these cuts because the water isn't there.
Exactly. So their argument basically in the Rocky Mountains is we don't have these big reservoirs that you have at Lake Mead and Lake Powell to draw out of. Our reservoir is the snow. And when it comes down in a stream, like a year like this is a terrible year.
Yes.
And so there are farmers and ranchers up there who are going to be cut off regardless because there's just not water in the stream that ends up in the Colorado River. And so, it's basically first in line, first in right. So if there's a rancher in Colorado who their family started farming in the 1890s, say, and there's another one downstream just from them that started in the 1880s. Well, there's not enough for both of them, so the one in the 1880s is going to get it this year.
Interesting.
And so they're already taking those kinds of cuts, and their argument is we didn't cause climate change. We're not the ones who actually are causing the depletion of the water at Lee's Ferry.
And they're looking at Arizona and California in particular, but Arizona as well, as growth, out of control growth, and these sorts of things. You're using too much. Is that the reason that they're saying that voluntary cuts they can live with, mandatory cuts they can't?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it is that we in the lower basin have used the full half that was allocated to us. We went right up to it and then had to start cutting back because the reservoir levels were declining precipitously. The upper basin never did quite get there. They haven't developed the use of all that water. So that's one of their arguments, is that it's not fair. You know, if we were promised a certain amount of water, we're not getting it. And so in order to solve the problem, particularly to keep water in Lake Mead and Lake Powell, Arizona and California have to cut back.
And this high-powered law firm that Arizona has taken on here, they've argued in front of the Supreme Court. They know their business when it comes to environmental law, this sort of thing?
Yeah, that's what the governor's office told us when they hired them last month. They said they have attorneys who are well-versed in litigation between states over water and also in arguing cases to the Supreme Court.
Is this necessarily going to go to litigation? I mean, I know we're coming up here on a couple of deadlines here. The compact, it's got to happen by, I think, October, and there's something going on in the middle of summer as far as the feds and their are they close, or is it or is the divide even widening?
I've seen no evidence that it's gotten any closer this year. I mean, all the states, including Arizona, say we're still talking, we still hope to reach a deal. But if they don't by summer, as you said, the current guidelines for operating the dams expire on October 1st, and the federal government has to put something else in place by then, and they need to have a plan before that.
And there's a real threat for hydroelectric power up there, isn't there? I mean, it's not just something pie in the sky. This could actually happen.
The forecast right now for the river is that if the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation didn't do anything to prevent Lake Powell continuing to decline this year, that it would probably drop below the level where it could produce, where Glen Canyon Dam could produce hydroelectricity, which has, ramifications from here to Wyoming, and especially in smaller utilities, smaller towns and tribes. That may not happen this year because they're going to tinker with it, let a little bit less water out, maybe go up to Flaming Gorge Dam higher up in the system and release more than they had hoped to from there to sort of restock. But nonetheless, if we have another bad year next year, it does appear like hydropower at Glen Canyon is going to disappear.
Brandon Loomis, again, Arizona Republican, azcentral.com. Great job reporting on this. Thank you so much for sharing your information. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Reading Rainbow is returning to PBS after a 2-decade hiatus. The show welcomes a new host, Michael Threets. He's a librarian who built an online following over his love of books and from openly talking about his mental health challenges. We recently spoke with Michael Threets about the return of the show and his message. Michael, good to have you here. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Thanks so much. This is going to be a lot of fun. You're the resident librarian for PBS and PBS Kids, correct?
I am. I'm loving it. As far as I know, I'm the first one that they've ever had, and I hope that they have many more to come. But I'm a PBS kid through and through, and I'm happy to be their resident librarian.
And you're also pretty happy to be the new host of Reading Rainbow.
Oh, beyond happy. I grew up with loving LeVar Burton, loving Mr. Rogers, all things PBS, everything wholesome, good, and kind. So to somehow be chosen as the host of Reading Rainbow until they come to their senses, I'm glad to be a part of the Reading Rainbow world.
What was it about Reading Rainbow when you were a kid? What was it? The movement? Was it LeVar? Was it the book? What connected you?
You know what? I think it was definitely LeVar Burton, through and through. It was cool to see a person who looked like myself on the screen, but even more so, I think just seeing a person who loved books, who saw the adventures, the curiosity and imagination of books, who saw that every book can be an adventure, and then just going through different places and saying, this is a part of your world. You belong in books. Yeah. You belong everywhere. And they just did that so exceptionally well that I believed it. I think that's what they've done for so many readers in such a wonderful world.
Yeah, and Reading Rainbow, that is what Reading Rainbow, kind of encouraging kids, motivating kids to be readers and to be in love with books. And they got you, didn't they?
They did, yes, exactly. Yeah. I think in a way we do teach people to read, but the emphasis is much more on encouraging readers, on saying you can be a reader. You're worthy of being a reader. Reading is fun. It's not a chore. It's something that we want you to look forward to dive into.
Yeah, and we were talking before the show about books. I got a lot of books at home. You got a lot of books.
Many books.
I mean, if you have a certain relationship with literature and books, they're like your friends. You see them on the wall and they're your friends.
Yes, many of them were my very first friends. I'm a person who is shy, has anxiety, depression, panic attacks, nightmares. And Junie B. Jones, Amelia Bedelia, Boxcar Children, Henry Huggins, Ramona and Beezus were all my very first friends when I was a little library kid.
I want to get to that in a second here, but I do want to ask, it's one thing to enjoy the show. It's one thing to be influenced by the show. Mm-hmm. Why did you want to host the show?
I love this question because I wouldn't necessarily say I wanted to host the show. Again, I'm a very, very shy person. It's something where I never saw myself doing it. It's also something where I've always thought, LeVar Burton has and always will be Reading Rainbow. How could there ever be another host? And I think it's just something where we're in a new generation of readers. You have all these kids who want to be YouTubers. And right now we're on YouTube, reaching them through YouTube, saying, hey, you can be a YouTuber and talk about books. We want to meet you where you're at. So I don't know how to answer why did you want to be a host. I think I've always just wanted to remind people and encourage people to be readers, to use and love their local library.
So with that in mind, and you kind of touched on this, what can you bring to this new edition? I mean, obviously the world has changed a whole lot since LeVar Burton was there.
I think what I bring, if anything, is just the joy of books, the joy of libraries, of opening up around literacy, and just knowing that neurodivergent people are readers, LGBTQI plus people are readers, homeless people are readers. Every person, if they're loud, if they're quiet, if they're messy, if they're clean, they are all capable of being readers. And I think I try to be infectious and contagious in reminding people that they all belong in books.
And I was going to say, you're considered the internet's favorite librarian. So you got the internet connection there. You got the librarian connection there. Sounds like you are the perfect host for this.
I appreciate that. I think there's so many other people who would have been wonderful. I'm so proud of it, but I do have a love for the internet, and I definitely have a love for the library, as evident in my library card tattoo.
Very good. You referred to this earlier, struggles with mental health.
Yes.
Talk to us about that, and talk to us about why going public was important to you.
I would say I don't think going public was necessarily important to me. I think I was just really struggling with mental health. I'm still struggling even today with thoughts of not being worthy, of not wanting to be in the world, and just taking things one day at a time. And I think in my library career, I've encountered so many library kids who suffer from mental health struggles. And mental health, as I'm sure you're aware, it's not only an adult problem. It affects kids, teens, every single human being, even animals, I believe. And I think for me, it was important to reach people to remind them that it's okay to not be okay. Recently, I met a 14-year-old who was autistic, and they let me know that they were embarrassed by their autism. And I think for me, it's talking to those people through something that's safe, like as safe as possible, like the library, and saying, hey, I know you're worried, I know you have these struggles, but it's not embarrassing to struggle. We all struggle. No one's struggle is greater. We're all here for one another. So I think for me, talking about my struggles was trying to remind people, you're not as alone as you think you are. Please stay one more day.
Have you had more responses like that? What kind of response in general do you get?
I think I get so much gratitude from people for talking about anxiety, talking about depression. I remind people that they're the ones who have kept me going day after day, and I'm honored to be on this earth with them and to keep on going. So for people to reach out to me and tell me their story and just trust me with their story, with their voice, it means the absolute world to me, and I'm so thankful that they trust me, and more importantly, that they decide to stay one more day.
Yeah, exactly. And libraries can be a safe harbor for folks who are kind of working through things and kind of get you back going, can it?
They very much can. Libraries are one of the last third spaces in the world where there are no expectations. You just have to show up. You have to cross that threshold. If you want to read books, if you want to sit down in a chair, if you want to get out of the heat, get out of the elements, you can just exist in the library just as you are.
I would be remiss if we did not mention, I should say, Fred Rogers. You were recently here in town for kind of a Be My Neighbor Day, I think it was, here with Arizona PBS.
Yes.
Was Fred Rogers as big an influence on you as it was on so many kids?
Yes. Oh, Fred Rogers is my ultimate hero of all time, the king of kindness. So much fun, so great to be a part of Mr. Fred Rogers Day with Arizona Library, with my friend Stacy Gordon. And yes, I love Mr. Rogers so much. I love that he said, I like you the way that you are. He always looked into the camera and genuinely said, I'm proud of you just for being you. And just his calm demeanor, just his cardigans, his blue shoes, just his overall presence just always made me feel at home. It made me feel welcome and safe, and I'm just so glad the world ever had a person as wonderful as Mr. Fred Rogers.
Well, with Mr. Fred Rogers and Mr. LeVar Burton there as the people that showed you the way, you're standing on their shoulders, it has to be rewarding for you.
So rewarding. I'm so thankful for them, and I'm so thankful for every library kid and library grown-up to be the best version of themselves, and I hope that they know that I'm a person who believes in them each and every day.
Michael Threets, host of Reading Rainbow. Reading Rainbow revived, huh?
Yes, sir.
It's good to have you here.
Likewise.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
So many Arizonans are struggling.